Hello everybody, my name's Steve, I'm the British Railroader and welcome to my model railroad room for the final part of Project 2790. Today we're looking at weathering. So we're here. We've reached the final episode of Project 2790. And today I'm just going to talk you through the process that I use for weathering. I have done other videos about this, but I just think it's helpful just to explain the stages that I've gone through with this particular project. Also, I'm going to be weathering this thing. Well, I have weathered this thing. This is the, one of the great things about filming is you do everything backwards. But I picked this up not at the NMRA convention, but in the week beforehand off of eBay. It's a CSX transfer caboose. As far as I can tell, it's still in operation in Florida. And I thought, well, whilst I'm weathering the loco, I might as well weather this as well. I love a transfer caboose. This is my second CSX transfer caboose. So you'll see a little bit of this as well. I got that from eBay and from a guy called Colin. And Colin messaged me and said, hopefully I'm going to see the caboose on the layout at some point. Colin, yes, you will. You're going to see some footage of it in a minute. I hope you're watching. I'm pretty sure that I've probably spoken to you before, but I cannot for the life of me remember. So drop me a message, say hello, and we can always reconnect. Before I start on the weathering though, I've just got a couple of shout outs that I want to make. Now, the first one is to do with my video last weekend. So in between times, I've done a little GWR video, but at the NMRA convention, I pointed out that I met up with a fellow YouTuber whose layout and channel is called CSX Isola West. Now, in the video, I referred to him as Ian. His name's not Ian. I don't know where that brain fart came from. His name's Lee. Lee, you have been a great sport about me having a senior moment and calling you the wrong name. I don't know where I got Ian from. But anyway, it's Lee. He's a lovely guy. And thank you so much for being such fun about this. I've also got two channels to shout out to. The first one is called Deltic Film. Quick look at my notes there. Deltic Film was also at the NMRA convention. I didn't speak with them, but they produced a number of shorter videos really focusing detailed on the layouts that were there. I would recommend going to look at them. They're a lot better than mine. Mine are more of an overview. Theirs are just gets right down into the nitty gritty. The other channel I want to give a shout out to is called Two Nerds, One Railway. Now, these are two young people that live here in Southend-on-Sea, and they'd put out loads of shorts where they've taken film of trains in the Southend area. At the moment, they're getting a lot of footage of the railhead treatment train, so if you like Class 66s, they're a good one to go to. Go and have a look at their channel. They're putting loads of content out there. They're really, really nice. I've chatted to them a few times online, but it's always good to support a newer channel. Okay, so that's all the shout outs done. Let's get over to the spray booth. Let's have a look and see what I've done. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start masking up the loco and the caboose ready for weathering. Now, you may recall that I didn't put the windscreen wipers on the loco, and there's a good reason for that. So I'm going to mask it using this stuff, Maskol. So Maskol is like a rubber solution. It dries a sort of purpley clear colour, but it's great for masking off bits and pieces when you are going to do weathering and whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mask off the windows, the number boards, the lights, and also the ditch lights. But the ditch lights I'm going to do slightly differently, and I'll explain that in a minute. So we'll just start with the Maskol on the locos. Just to open this up, make sure it's still liquid. I did have some once that was in the bottle so long that it dried into a lump of rubber. And literally you get a bit on here and you just paint it over the area that you want to mask. That is it. It is literally as simple as that. Name on this window. And you know what? I don't mind if I don't get too much in all of the corners, because that makes it just a little bit more realistic. I'm going to put some on this wind visor thing. That's it. Leave that to dry. Now I'll do the other bits in a minute. Just moving over to the caboose. I'm going to do the windows as well. But also what I like to do is, because when I weather these, I take it apart, just hear things like the bosses where the trucks fit on. Just by weathering these just by sort of masking these off just means that you're not going to get a build-up of paint. I'm going to put that to one side. And again, on the trucks, I put a little bit of this stuff just here, and also a little bit on each of the 4 bearings. And when this is dry, this will be ready for weathering. So there we go. That's the truck. You just put this brush to one side. Now, when you take this stuff off, don't wash it off, because it won't. It forms a kind of like a rubber solution. So you're best to kind of pull it off. This brush is my mask hole brush. It's an old paintbrush. And as you can see, it's very stiff and rubbery, but it works. It does the job. Okay, let's just look at the ditch lights. So we're going to mask them off using a bit of tape. Okay, so this is just Tamiya tape. It doesn't matter what width it is, because we're going to be chopping it up. So I'm just going to take a piece, just put it down here, and then so you can see that I literally am going to cut it into little squares. You can see that tiny little square there. I'm literally just going to put that over the top of the ditch light. So the reason I've done it this way on the ditch lights is because the gluing glaze, again, is another rubber solution type product. And if I start putting mascal on there, when it comes to time to take it off, I might actually pull out the gluing glaze and then pull out the LED, which is obviously something I don't want to do. Okay, so I'm going to get the loco all finished up, and then we'll take it over and we'll start some weathering. Okay, we're just going to look at how I paint the wheels of my rolling stock, because when they start off and look like this, they're just quite bright and shiny, and whenever you look at wheels on real trains, they're never like this. So I take some Vallejo Model Air rust paint, put a little spot on there, and I use these micro brushes that you can get from eBay. Dip it in, and what we want to do is we want to paint the front face of the wheel and the rim, but we don't want to do the running edge or the flange, and we don't want to get it onto the tip. So literally, and this is why I like these, you can just run it around like this, just gently, so that it just covers the rim. And as you can see, there's no paint on there. Just turn that round and do the other side. And if you do get a little bit of paint on the tread, you can just wipe it off. A little bit too much paint on there, but that will just come off with that. So I'm going to put that there to dry. And the next step, and here's some that I prepared earlier. So we've painted the faces and that's dried. And what we want to do is just hold it by the axles and do the same on the inner face of the wheel. I'm going to do that both sides. There we go, and put that one to dry. Now, once all that's dry, and I say to do this once all that's dry because it's just easier to handle, we now want to paint the axle. Leave that's dry. And what you're left with is a wheel set that the treads are shiny, the flanges are shiny, but the rest of it is a nice dull rust colour. And what you can do is you can then weather on top of that if you want to. I sometimes just use a little black wash just to give it a grimy look. But that, in a nutshell, is what I do with my wheels. Quite simple to do. Okay, so we're starting actually with the caboose, simply because I want to lighten it a little bit because it's quite faded in real life. So what we're going to start with is some white that has been thinned down quite a bit. So we're just going to start by putting some of this on. And it's a very, very light coat. Because I don't want to make this white, I just want to lighten all of the colours. So this is a very, very light coat. Almost to the point where you can't really see it unless you look very, very close. I mean, if I just put this here, you can see the white is not the major part of the pigment. It's, you know, just very, very... But the good thing is that you can build this up. Because it's got thinners in it, it dries quite quickly, which is what we want it to do. I'm not going to worry too much about the roof, a little bit on there. But you can see that it's faded a lot of the writing, which is kind of what I wanted it to do. Tone down that yellow a little bit. There, that's it. It's just getting where I want it now. Okay, so I think that's enough white, and I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. Okay, so you may be wondering what I'm doing, but one of the first colours I like to put on when I'm weathering a locomotive is this. It's called black grey, and I want it to actually also be evenly distributed on the wheels. So what I've got set up here is a rolling road, and the wheels are rolling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a coat just on the trucks, just so that the wheels get a coat. I will be putting some more on there. So I'm just going to turn this around to get the other side done. Okay, so with the trucks done, I can now concentrate on the body. And I just kind of, what I want to do is just very gently blow over the entire body with this dark grey. What it does is it gives a nice, even, kind of grimy colour. Get that all over. Just remember, your roof is always going to be quite grimy. Okay, I'm going to give that a minute to dry. Okay, so while the loco's drying, I'm going to do the same thing with the caboose. Always start at the bottom with things like this, because that's kind of where the dirt starts, is down below. Gently build up. And we're going to get a bit of a build up on the roof here. There we go. Okay, so whilst that's drying, I've got the trucks here. And again, just using that same grey, going to give them a nice liberal coat all over. It takes, once it dries, that'll take that glossy plastic look away from them. Okay, so for the next stage, I'm using a pale camouflage brown. Again, very, very thinned. And again, what I'm going to do, just it's over here, is I'm going to start near the bottom and just go on very, very lightly. I don't want too much here. This is a hint of road dirt. Very light. Okay. This is always difficult to do. It does dry very quickly, but the last thing you want to do is get fingerprints and everything. So, and just very lightly. So we don't want to detract from the colours that are already there. But we want it to be noticeable. And the same on the roof. And I just need to be careful because I'm managing to slop it everywhere. Thank goodness for tissue. Because I overfilled my cup. I'm sure that there's somebody out there who will tell me off for that. There we go. A bit more on there. A bit more on the roof. And this is not the predominant colour, but it also acts like a rusty colour, which is quite helpful. Okay. And the good thing about weathering is it doesn't have to be even, because that's not what you're aiming for. So what I'm going to do as well is just put a little bit on the trucks here. Again, we want them just to reflect a little bit of that road dirt, and then the caboose. Okay, I think I mixed far too much of this brown. Everything's looking nice and patchy. I don't know how well you can see that. Unfortunately, the lighting here is not the best. But if I bring my light over a little bit, hopefully you can see that, and I'll show it to you in a bit more detail shortly. So that's the brown done. Okay, I'm very conscious that the lighting on here hasn't been brilliant, but hopefully you can see now the kind of overall effect that I've gone for. It's not a heavy weather, this one. Okay, so the last little bit section for the locomotive, at least before we seal it, is going to be just some black on the roof. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got the two exhausts here, you've got the fans, so it needs a bit of a sooty coating. So I've just got some matte black and just applying this to the areas. You get a bit of general darkening all over. Certainly in these fans and around these exhausts, you'll get some black. I'll leave it a bit more there. Did it a bit there, but it doesn't matter because, again, you know, a little bit in here just to fill those areas. There we go. And I'm just going to put just a general little bit just on the caboose, just up. It'll just add some grime, that last little layer. Okay, clear as mud? I hope so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these to dry now for about an hour, and when we come back we're going to put on the final coat of varnish. Okay, so the loco and the caboose and everything has been allowed to dry, and I just want to get a coat of varnish on there just to protect the finish. This is an important part. Now you could use a rattle can. I just happen to use, again, the Vallejo stuff. This is their acrylic matte varnish. I literally just thin it with their thinners and apply it through an airbrush. So we'll just put a coat on there. Just liberally applying this stuff now and get it nicely over. I like this stuff because it does dry very clear and nice and flat. So I'm almost like I can never get too much of this on here. And we're going to add some to the trucks. Apologies, my hands are in the way here. Oh, there we go, get some into the trucks. Make sure they get a good covering as well. Okay, you probably saw more of my hands than you did of everything else, but that's now all varnished, and that will dry in the next hour or so. A lovely matte finish. Just a quick word about my airbrush. When I was doing the weathering, whilst I would flush it through in between colours, I wouldn't give it a proper clean because you don't need to. It's going to be a mucky colour anyway. But before I did the varnishing, I did give it a thorough clean because you want the varnish to be clear. You don't want it to be coloured. So that's quite important. So that was that done. Just going to, while I'm here, just get a little bit on the underside. Good thing about this stuff, it dries very, very quickly. Okay, so what we're doing now is just cleaning the wheels of the locomotive. And the way that I've done this, I've got my little test track out, and I've put some tissue over the rails, and I'm just spraying some isopropyl alcohol over the top. That just wets it, it gives a cleaning surface. I then put the loco on and put the front wheels onto the tissue that's got the IPA. I then crank up the speed of the loco so that it will then turn the wheels, but it'll basically stall itself, so that the wheels are turning on the tissue. And as you can see, it's moving backwards and forwards, and I'm just letting it sort of go backwards and forwards. So once you've done this for a few seconds, you can lift it off, as I think I'm about to do here. No, not quite. Here we go. There we go, lift it off, and you can see the dirt that's come off onto that tissue. And then just repeat the whole process for the back wheels. So the next job is to take the maskell off of the windows and other bits that we've applied it to. So just steadying my loco, getting my really fine tweezers, and I think you can just see here, you just peel at it and it comes off in a quite a satisfying way. So you get this kind of big lump of rubber. So I'm going to take off all of the bits of maskell and obviously the bits of masking tape that were placed on the ditch lights. Now the last thing that we're going to do is fit the windscreen wipers. All I've done to them, apart from cut them off the sprue, is paint them just with a little bit of aluminium coloured paint, which if you can't find that in the USA, I believe there's something called aluminum paint that you can find. Anyway, so what I've done is just dipped the peg into some glue and glaze and then just fitted it into the appropriate hole, and then just obviously manoeuvred that into position so that the windscreen wiper is in the right place. So with the double windscreen wipers that fit the central cab window, what I did was I cut the pegs off, and I've literally just dipped them in a little bit of the glue and glaze just on the very ends, and then lined it up on the window just so it's in the right position. Now I've tried doing this before using the pegs and drilling holes and all that kind of thing, not with great success, but what I found is that doing it this way means that you can get it lined up in exactly the right place, and it works. So there we go, that's the central ones in place. So here we are, here's the final product, as it were. I'm really pleased with how she's turned out. I think, considering that we started with a relatively cheap loco that wasn't particularly well detailed, I'm hoping that the series of videos has shown you that it is possible to produce something that actually is quite good quality. And I think, you know, managed to do rather well with 2790. And again, here we have the caboose, which I think has turned out really, really well. I'm really pleased with it. You know, it kind of matches the loco a little bit. In real life, this particular caboose is a lot more faded, but you know, I think I've faded it enough and made it look dirty enough that it'll look great on some transfer work on the layout. Okay, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, you can either post them in the comments below, or if you want to, you can email me directly on this email address that's going across the screen just here. If you haven't done so already, please consider pressing that subscribe button, and when the bell comes up, click it and hit all, and you will be notified of all my videos as they come out. But that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this series of films, they're all available in one kind of a playlist, and it's been quite fun just sharing with you how I have gone about detailing this quite basic loco, and hopefully it's inspired some of you guys to go on and do the same. But that's it from me. My name's Steve, I'm the British Railroader, and I'm saying goodbye from my model railroad room. Bye bye.